talking about Aaron Rodgers, though, that leads us into our next topic of the
Mm.
show, and that is none other than Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. June
I
is,
like how you put them two
you know what
together.
I'm saying, bro? You know what I'm saying? It is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and I
Yeah.
think this is a topic that, as we continue to get older, right? As men,
Yes.
you and I, like as we continue to grow older, this topic becomes more and more uh discussable. It becomes
Yes.
more prevalent within the
Hmm.
men's community. It becomes more prevalent to be able to have these types of conversations with your kids, with your significant other,
Hmm.
and it's you're able to bring your feelings and where you are mentally. You're able to discuss that with family and friends, and it's not so taboo. It's not so guarded. People are more willing
More
to
open.
have
Yeah.
those serious conversations before. I mean, where you're like, why are you being like that? Like, man up, man up. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That's a big one. Man up. That's
Well,
life.
I think that,
That's the kind of stuff we hear, and now it's
yeah,
like, well,
yeah, it's,
it's okay to be vulnerable and have feelings
yeah.
and feel like maybe mentally you're not as strong as you want to be.
And I think it all boils back down to, again, depending on how you were brought up, right? Us coming from, well, at least me coming from a Hispanic household, you're always made to believe that you're the man of the house, that you're the breadwinner, you're the one that takes care of everybody. There's no room or no time for sobbing, for crying, for looking for help, or worrying about what your feelings are at that point. You're there to provide, you're there to protect, you're there to do all the essential things that a man is supposed to do. And that's because you were brought up that way. At least for me it was that way. So I never thought about it until I got in my later years, now that everybody's so open now, and it's something that's brought up, right? Because I I can't even remember what the number is, but I think men are lead the nation in suicide rates when it comes to taking their own lives, because it starts to become too much. The weight on their shoulders, or the weight that they feel that they necessarily need to carry, is something that drives them to that point, right? And again, we don't want none of our brothers to have to go through something like that. I have a brother. I mean, I consider you as one of my brothers, and if we're ever struggling, it's one of those things that you kind of keep it inside, but whenever you get close to certain people, it's like you can open up and be vulnerable at that time. And a lot of times we don't like to be vulnerable, because we see it, or at least I see it, as a form of weakness. It's like, you're being
Right.
weak right now.
That's exactly the word right there. Who I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up is uh, our the generations before us kind
Hmm.
of. I don't want to say like I'm not speaking ill of my parents, my
No.
father. My father, uh, he had some things that he dealt with, and he got saved when he was in his 40s.
Mm.
So we saw a lot of stuff that wasn't necessarily um the right stuff sometimes,
Hmm.
but he tried to lead by example. He kind of opened that door to be able to communicate and when you're feeling vulnerable, when you're feeling weak, to be able to
Hmm.
speak about it. I will say big shout out to the younger generations, like our kids
Hmm.
that have normalized being able to vocalize your feelings and say, "Hey, I'm struggling. I need help. I don't feel like I'm necessarily doing the right things. Like I feel like I'm not succeeding." I talk with my kids all the time, and there are times when I'm vulnerable with them, and I'm just like, man, I feel like I'm failing you guys as a father. I feel like I'm failing as a husband. I feel like I'm failing as a provider.
And that's the crazy part about it, right? I mean, we didn't really think about that when we were younger, but now that we're getting older, we have our families, we have our kids. We know what it's like now. Like before, whenever my dad was like, he would say, "You'll know whenever you have your own kids. You'll know when you have your own family." And when you're a kid and you're young, you don't really think about it in that sense, and you're like, what is that gonna do, or how's that gonna affect me? But there was a little snippet of a TikTok that I saw earlier today where I think it said something to the effect. I have to look it up to know, to say it word for word, but in to encapsulate it, it basically just said, the worst thing about being a dad is when you have to tell your kids that you don't have it and you want to
Right.
give it to them. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where it hits home because there have been times where it's like you're struggling for a little bit and you can't say, "Yeah, I can let's go get this for you right now. Let's go do this for you right now." And you don't realize how that makes you feel until you have your kids and you have to deal with something like that and you have to say no at that time. Because
Hey, the
as a
first time you see disappointment on your kid's face when you tell them no, bro,
bro, it
brutal.
breaks you.
It it,
It
it
breaks you.
doesn't get it doesn't necessarily get easier, but it
Yeah.
you kind of learn, you grow from that, and
Yeah.
you always kind of tell yourself this is gonna be the last time. And
Yeah.
sometimes, maybe it is. Sometimes maybe it's not. Like
Yeah.
you just kind of you never know. But I think that the beauty in being able to communicate
Mhm.
where you are with your family, with your significant other,
Mhm.
and not think that it's weak.
Yeah.
Uh, One thing, I never saw my dad cry
Yep.
growing up. You know, my grandpa passed away when I was a senior in high school, 2000. Dad didn't cry at the funeral. Dad didn't cry before. He never broke down. He broke down by himself
Mhm.
after everything was said and done. And I'm just like, I couldn't imagine being like that, and that struggle mentally and emotionally that he was going through. And I don't want to say it's because he would have felt weak or not supported, because I think my mom was always his ace. You know what I'm saying? Like she was
Mhm.
his day one. She's always gonna be his ride or die. So I don't think it was that, but I think we just find it difficult to express what we're going through because it always has been kind of looked down upon. And when you think about it now, it's just like, why do we make fun of people and talk like that?
I don't think it's
That's not
necessarily.
cool. Like, bro, I mean, I'm not even trying to be offensive when I say this, right?
Yeah.
Because but like you remember being younger and
Mhm.
somebody's like, hey, I'm sad or whatever. You're just like, bro, that's gay.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, no,
You're being
bro.
a
Like,
bitch. Like,
right.
yeah. But to me, like something like what you were describing right now, and it made me kind of think back to like my dad. Obviously, he's had some people pass away in his family, and you see that they don't have any emotion, or that they show up to the funeral and they're just kind of very serious, very just emotionless, basically. And I think that also stems from like him being the oldest of all of his brothers and sisters, and then you losing somebody like the head of the family, the main man of the family. You are now, that responsibility now passes on to you, and you have to show strength for your brothers and sisters, because your brothers and sisters may be the ones that are sobbing and crying and weeping and everything else, and
Yeah.
they look at you now and it's like I am now the new, basically the head now. So and because it falls kind of like that sometimes in certain families, and I'm not saying every family is the same, but sometimes that's what happens. And because you were raised the way that you were raised, and not everybody's raised the same, but it is taught. I know it was taught to me anyway that you're, as a man, you're supposed to be able to hold it down when you're next in line, or when you're made to feel like you're next in line. And so yeah, you're the one that everybody counts on. You're the one that everybody kind of leans on, and they expect you to be strong and not to be weak or not to show any weakness. So it's one of those things to where I can understand from your dad's standpoint, showing that that facade up front, even though he may have been dying inside, and then
Right.
later on his own time, by himself, him finally letting it out and expressing himself because that's what he had to do. Because at the
Right.
moment, he didn't want anybody else to see. So it sucks. Sometimes it does because I know that I've gone through many a times where shit's eating me up inside, or I'm going through something and it's eating me inside. But because I am the head of my household, because I am the father of my children and everything else, I just have to say, yeah, I'm good right now. I'm okay. I'm straight,
Yeah.
you know, and just put up that front and
Hey,
try to
the
keep it
the
going.
kids are yeah, the kids, my kids are like, "Man, how do you not panic? How are you not stressed? How are you not,
Yeah.
whatever?" And I'm very transparent with my family. I'm like, I'm all those things. I feel all those things. I'm a human. I'm only a man. I feel
Mhm,
everything you guys feel. It's just I can't I can't show that
mhm,
because if y'all see panic in me,
mhm.
then y'all gonna be panicked even more. I
Yeah.
don't we are the ones that kind of offer that stability, that straight like, hey, if dad says it's gonna be all right, it's gonna be all
It's gonna
right.
be alright. Yeah,
You know what I'm
exactly.
saying? And so, they have that visual of like a duck on water, right? He's just kind of cruising along, but if you look underneath, his feet are
His
like
feet are going a million miles an hour.
they're going,
Yep,
and I feel like that's how we are, right? Like on
mhm.
the surface, we look smooth, calm, collected, and then underneath, it's just like,
Yep.
wow, like we're just trying to make it.
That was always one of my favorite analogies when it came to that because it's exactly right. You look like a duck on water because the duck on the water, on the surface, everything looks fine. He's just cruising. But if you look underneath the water, I mean, his feet are going a million miles per hour. And that's just because, that's typically the way that most men feel. You can't be vulnerable. You can't show vulnerability or show that kind of thing because then you're considered weak. You're considered um oh you're not man enough basically at that point. And it's said out loud to you. It's like you're not man enough to handle this situation because you're already breaking down or you're already crumbling instead of trying to figure out a way to get through it. And and that's what kind of sucks because there's a double standard there. It's like a double-edged sword. You want to be able to show emotion, you want to be able to show vulnerability, but at the same time you don't because people will look at you a certain way and they'll say, "Oh, this guy's weak. He can't handle it, He can't handle the pressure. He can't handle whatever it is that's going on in his world right now and he's just going to break." And people dismiss it a lot of the times. And that's why I think you start to see things like, men committing suicide and doing things, pushing it to that extreme because they have nowhere else to go. They have no outlet. They don't have anybody to talk to. And so, I mean, it sucks because we don't have anybody to reach out to or talk to. And if you ever feel that way, please talk to somebody. Don't hold it in. You know, the last thing you want to do is just give up in general because you think that nobody wants to hear you or nobody wants to understand what you're going through. So talk to somebody, man. It's you can always find somebody to talk to, whether it be a family, friend, hell, us. If you wanted to leave us a comment and talk to us or reach out to us, trust me, we will talk back to you guys. We will engage with you guys. It's so important that we're able to lean on somebody from time to time, even if it's just to bend their ear for a minute,
Right.
just to listen to them, because
Eh,
everybody now and then needs to vent, and that's all we need.
Yep. At some point in life, you have to realize other people's opinions don't matter.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like at some point, you realize you have to be selfish sometimes, and
Mhm.
you have to get what you're looking for, and if you're not getting that physically, mentally, emotionally, as far as the support, then you definitely have to reach out. You know what I'm saying? You have to be able to communicate those things. and not just hold them in and suffer in silence. That's a big thing that I
Yes.
always tell people is don't suffer in silence.
Yes.
Like, you have to let it be known. Some people are too proud, some people are embarrassed, some people just feel like nobody cares, and that's a misconception because there's
Yeah.
always gonna be somebody that cares. You may not know it, you may not realize it, but there is somebody that cares. So the big thing is, I would say, is if you guys have any kind of things that you're dealing with, you're stressed about, don't hesitate to hit us up. Don't hesitate to get in this video,
Yeah.
and just message and say, hey, you know what? This is something I'm struggling with. If you guys were even to go as far as to be like, we don't need all the personals, we don't need all that. But if you're just like, hey, boys, I'm struggling with this, would you possibly even pray for me? We'll pray for you.
Yep.
Um, we'll offer that up because we know everybody needs it. Everybody needs to feel like they're heard, they're valid, they
Definitely.
have worth. And when you don't feel like that, it's a dark, dark place, and the world is a cold, cold place. And
Mhm.
nobody deserves to feel like that. So, men, women, anybody, if you're struggling, please don't
Please.
hesitate. We will do what we can. You have people that do care about you, whether you want to believe it or not. And like I said, we'll definitely do our part. All you got to do is ask, reach out, and we'll be more than happy to do that for you. So
For sure. For sure.